This is the E-Free Lethbridge podcast. So glad that you joined us on the E-Free Lethbridge podcast. Today we've got the service pastor for the 9 a.m. service, the 11 a.m. service, the most community-minded person I know, Mark Dick.
Hello, hello.
We have the Wonder Woman extraordinaire, Glenda Postman.
Good morning.
And we have the young at heart, the service pastor for the 6 o'clock service, Luke Watson.
Greetings.
And I am your host, Levi. And if you are wondering what's up with my voice, it's because I was just at the dentist and I have a little bit of a slur this morning.
Classic.
If you're watching, you might see part of my lip hanging down low. It's just, you know, the dentist caught me off guard this week. All of a sudden, they opened up and I had a cleaning booked that same week. Like it just, by chance,
Awesome.
I had the cleaning that week.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Already booked in. And
Yeah.
so they just started with their regular appointments. And
Oh.
so I went to the dentist, which was very pushing the limits for me. And then they're like, yeah, you need to get this filling. So I had an appointment at 9 a.m. And so I'm a little numb.
I just feel like I feel like we're getting a really good snapshot through this time of various stages of hair.
Yeah, if you watch
mustache, no beard, Luke had hair, then had no hair, now it's a little bit of hair. Levi has various stages of haircuts. I might be the one true thing here.
But
No
you have not
haircut?
cut your hair since March, Glenda?
I have not had a haircut since like December.
You know what? You're like a rock for us. You're like,
Yeah,
you know
I'm
what?
just like to
Bring us back to
hold
the
it.
same is the same. You hold the line. It's nice. Thank
Consistent, just like the
welcome.
sermon this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
consistent.
you.
Well,
That's awesome.
I think it's time to move to a fun morning question. Today's fun morning question is, what are you guys interested in that most people aren't interested in?
I feel like we could have a list of things for Luke.
Yeah.
Yo, name some of them, Glenda.
Flags. Flags.
Flags, yes. That's good. That's good.
Oh man.
Flags.
Dr.
That's
Phil
true,
masks.
Levi. Yeah.
So, like some of your
Let me
sports,
talk about the
nobody cares
flags.
about you. Live in Alberta. Nobody cares about your Toronto sports teams.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's fair. The Argos.
Whoa,
Too far?
Glenda.
Too
The
far.
Argos.
Yeah, the
Argos
Toronto
have 4
Argonauts.
fans.
Yeah, true that, but not the Leafs, Glenda. I mean, you go to Calgary
Okay.
during a Flames Leaf game, there's lots of Leaf fans
Yeah.
at those
Okay.
games. And
How about you, Glenda? What's yours?
yeah, people care.
I care about a lot of things that people don't care about. I like really get into something. So like the Enneagram would be an example. I really like that. I think any kind of personality or people test are really good. And I want to talk about them. Levi told me that some people do like
lot of people
Enneagram,
like
but
that
lots of
stuff,
people are
though,
sick of
Glenda.
it and don't want to talk about it anymore. And I'm like, but I'm not done talking about it.
You know what?
Okay.
We're learning just to listen. Why don't you just talk about it a little bit right now? We can.
Talk about your number 7, 8.
Yeah, your number 7.
I think
With
more
the
people like it than
hashtag
don't
3.
like it. So,
Yeah, that's right, Mark.
Yeah, you think
show
more
up as
people
an
like it?
8,
yeah.
but you're actually a 7. How does it go?
Yeah. Yeah,
when you're
something like that.
stressed, you're a 9.
Yeah. See? So interesting.
We got a couple of people that don't know anything about Enneagram on this
That's
podcast.
right.
I
We
think.
do. See? They don't care. They don't want to
Just
talk
talk
about it
about
anymore.
numbers and stress and
Yeah, you know
Oh,
what? I
good.
have. I'll be honest with you. I have done the test. I even have the results saved, but I can't tell you what the hashtag secondary showing up as primary.
See, this because we're a bunch of sevens on this podcast.
Yeah,
That's why.
and me.
Probably-
That's a 3.
Give us
Oh,
seven.
you are Levi.
See, that's right.
It's
Uh,
the
better
best
than a
number.
3.
I like flags. That is true. Nobody's
like
interested in that.
Flags, like what kind of
Yeah,
flags? I gotta
I love the
understand. this.
idea. And Ruthie and I wanted a flagpole on our front yard. I settled with a little pull out the side of the house. Now I don't got one because we moved. And
You got to get a flag. You
Oh,
got to have
I
a
need
flag
it,
raising
yes.
ceremony.
yes, we had a flag raising ceremony. You know, when we put the patriotism man, Canadian flag out front. Big day in the Watson household.
Beautiful. I didn't know you had such a
Nobody
thing
cares.
with flags.
Who cares about
Nobody
flags that
cares.
much?
No, that's
Luke,
awesome.
I'm going to get you like an Easter flag with like an Easter bunny on
In
it.
Glenda, during the
You can raise
Alberta
it.
vote, I hung the Alberta flag.
I know,
Because
I
it was the
remember
big
it.
vote.
Yeah, I love this about
Look at them shaking their
See?
heads.
There's
That's
lots of
so
things that you
weird.
really love that
Yes.
people are done talking about. But sometimes we get
So
into like
good.
theological discussions or ideas about something.
Oh, it's
Like,
funny.
I always want to talk about women in the church. I don't get sick of that. Some people are like, let's move on. I'm like, but I'm not done talking about it.
I'm not done talking about this. Well, Glenda, did I freeze?
No.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah,
You're good, Luke.
You're good.
Mark, what about
Yeah.
you?
I don't know if I have something particularly like that I care about much. I like things that other people don't like. Probably my wife is the one mostly that doesn't like some of the same things I like. I could watch outdoor shows all day long.
Nice.
And watch like
What do you mean outdoor shows?
like people living in like remote places.
Like Naked and Afraid?
No, I'm not sure if I
Wow.
watched the Naked and Afraid show.
I don't know where that came from.
I'm afraid of that.
I've never
afraid,
watched
like-
Naked and Afraid. I just like to go on record.
I don't even
I'm
know
not-
what that is, and I'm like,
I
should
don't
I
either.
censor
People like-
this from the podcast?
Well,
Or
it's just-
It's like people
Glenda.
out in the bush living in the wild naked.
Naked, yeah.
I've not
Weird.
seen it,
It's
but
extreme. It's extreme.
Oh, that's
no,
so
like
funny.
is this what, that's not outdoor shows? You mean like fishing shows?
like
Oh, I
yeah,
love fishing
fishing,
shows.
living
They're
off the land, trying to figure out how to hunt and gather and have firewood and like I don't know. It's like Life Below Zero is what it's called. I love those kind of shows. That's I think they're fun to watch. I think the like ingenuity that people have to survive is fun. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm already
There's,
bored
like-
of talking about it.
there's
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
that new
man.
one on Netflix that's like a whole bunch of couples, they can win this house that these people built in
yeah,
Alaska,
Yeah, I started watching it, but
but they had to learn how to like live off the land and prove that they're worthy of owning this
Wow.
house, and then the couple chooses someone to win the house. Pretty cool.
Interesting.
You're right. People do get sick of that. Yeah.
Fishing shows so good.
Fishing shows? No.
Oh man, the commentary, each cast, there's new talk, you know?
okay.
You're just always waiting for
How
the
about
big
you?
mother.
What about
For me, I don't know if I have. I mean, I like Enneagram too, so maybe that's one. But I do have a little story. Like this past week, we had a staff meeting, and we broke off into groups, and we had to do show and tell. And I was broken off with Dave Acree and Eric Braun and Mike Dosso. So 3 guys and me, and everyone had to bring something to show and tell. So I brought one of my plants that I really like.
Interesting.
It's like a monstera. It's
That
like
I
a
really
small
like.
monstera, and it's like
Oh.
it's a Swiss cheese plant. And anyways, I think it's so cool. I'm like sharing. Dave's asking me these questions,
You should have
but
brought
the
your
whole
buffalo.
time I looked at his face while he was asking me questions, and he's just like asking conversations just to keep the conversation going, but not caring. I was
About
like,
the-
they
about
don't
the
care about
plant.
my plants.
No,
They don't care.
No,
They were all over your plants. They were done.
yeah.
Mike's like sitting there
Dave
working on
Acree
his
probably
computer.
bought his Bible. Like
Yeah.
a good
No,
pastor.
Dave Acree brought like a little miniature elephant that is from
Skull.
Africa.
Oh,
Oh, so you should have brought your buffalo. He would have loved.
I
the
should have brought my
buffalo.
buffalo.
Yeah.
no.
I feel like that
it would have
game-
embarrassed the elephant.
Yeah. I feel like that game revealed things that you're interested in that nobody else is interested in.
Exactly.
See, man, Luke, we're gonna keep a list of weird things you're interested in.
Yeah, Luke brought a
Exactly.
flag.
Else cares about.
That's right.
He
It's
brought his
like-
Argos
yeah.
flag.
He brought his Argos flag. I brought my plant, and I know there's other plant lovers out there, but they
Oh,
were into
it's
the
good,
plants.
Levi. Just
Like if
like
you're
those
like a
other
game
Argos
person, like I
fans.
love all games and will collect all games. Some people hate games; they just don't even want to. And I'm like,
Yeah.
how can you not? So this is what we're into.
All right, it's time to get to the message. This week, we were looking at Daniel chapter 3, and we kind of had like a co-share message between Jeff and Jer. It was really good. We were looking at how Nebuchadnezzar actually forgot his proclamation about Daniel's God, and he declares himself as the Most High and commands all to bow to him. And obviously we see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego refusing to bow, and then they're thrown into the fiery furnace, just as a recap, and God saves them. So just as a first question, have you guys ever faced a time that you had a hard choice about who rules? Like who rules? Yeah.
I think worry shows that we're in that question. When we're worrying, I think we're asking the question, who rules? Like, are we ruling ourselves because we think we can manage this situation in some way? But I think worry might tip our hand to that.
Yeah, I would say that I have the battle in terms of like me ruling my own life and allowing God to be in control. So the battle for me would be, I don't live in a time where we're mandated by the government to believe in government or not believe in God, or to not be allowed to. Does that, like, my beliefs aren't put to tests like that? So I would say my battle is with myself. Am I allowing God to be in charge, or allowing or taking charge of my own life and not allowing God to guide, direct? Worry is maybe one of the, fear probably the other thing that shows up, over sense of control.
Luke, are you sleeping?
He's still thinking about.
Sorry, I was pondering, Glenda. I was pondering the different scenarios in my life, I guess. The one that came to me, just some of those times in life where you go against the flow, swim up water a little bit. And the one that came to me was actually, it was out, I was a relatively new Christian, and I had this job at a camp, kind of the elite job. I was on the ski staff, and like that was the cream of the crop. And that summer, I just felt convicted that I needed to go into the kitchen and maintenance department, because that's where all the students were that were, I'll just use Christian language, lost. And so I gave up the cream of the crop for that cleaning dishes and dirty stuff. And I felt like, because that's where God was calling me. And it wasn't easy, because I had to say goodbye to a lot of good things. But I guess that's where I kind of followed the Lord a little bit and swam upstream, I guess. I remember being made fun of a lot for that.
I think that there's like times where I really willfully disobey. That I feel rebellious about something, or I just don't want to be squished in a box of some sort, or I don't know, just like strike out on my own. And I think that's probably when I'm asking the question, who rules? Like, but this doesn't seem right to my way, God. This doesn't seem right to my sense of sensibilities, or the direction I want this to go, or how I think you should interact with this. So I think that's when I kind of would like rail against God and strike out on my own. And then it's amazing how much God bends my knee to him, I think. But.
Yeah, that's good, Glenda. Like saying things like I deserve or I've earned. I feel like I do that often.
Yeah.
And that leads me to the place where, that's not a bended knee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like very maybe similar to Radshak and Abednego. I'm going to use the VeggieTales slang here.
Radshak and Benny. I think so.
Cool.
But when I was a kid, I thought, all over the world, it's freedom to praise whoever you want, like to worship Jesus. I just thought that was a right that I had. And then going into college and getting the opportunity to travel in Pakistan and in China, two different areas where you don't have that same right necessarily to openly worship God, to worship Jesus. And so I feel like there is that tension. I understand their tension all of a sudden a little bit differently than I had before, because there's always an issue of who rules your life, and there's this internal thing, and I've had authority issues, but all of a sudden when it's actually the government in the place that you are laying down rules, and there is the risk of death, like there is a little bit of a fear to stand up. Luckily I didn't ever have someone come down and say you're not able to do what you're doing or else you'll be penalized. I mean, we did get kicked out of a village for sharing Jesus with people, but it wasn't a risk of death. So I don't know. I feel like it is a hard choice. There's a hard choice there on who rules and when to stand up, when to go and align with the government, when to stand up. I think one important thing that brings it to is this even if. So Daniel 3:18 talks about this even if statement that they make, that they are still going to follow God even if God doesn't save them from the fire.
Yeah. Wow.
They know that God can save them from the fire. So even if he doesn't, they're still going to follow God. Yeah. It's a big statement. It shows this consistency in their faith. And Jer brought up these 3 C's: consistency, that we need to be consistent in our faith, we need to be confident in our faith, and we need to be courageous in our faith. And so that leads me to a question for you guys. What do you think we can learn about this even if question or phrase?
I'm so grateful for that phrase, because it's not prescriptive. It's not saying I'm going to trust God and he's going to do this one thing. It's saying I'm going to trust God whatever comes. And it's not controlling God. And really none of us can do that. So all of the situations that you face in life that you're not sure if God's going to like make a way for you, it's just so reassuring to know. And I think the piece that I love is that there was somebody else in the fire, and God didn't like pull them out of the fire. Like they didn't miraculously reappear somewhere else. He went into the fire with them. There's this idea. And so it just reminded me, like in every situation that we face, when we're in the fire, there's 4 people with us. Like we have the fullness of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit of God with us. Like, so I loved this image that they were saved because they were protected, but they weren't actually pulled out of that situation. They walked in that situation. They were just protected in the situation. And I love the idea that their ropes were burned, like they were bound, but they were not bound anymore. Their ropes burned. So anything that held them was burned.
Those are great. Great images. I think the cool part about that for me too is this even if part is that they knew who God was, like this consistent, they were confident, they were courageous because they knew God. Because they knew of God, because they knew of his promises, they knew of who he was, they knew of his presence in their life, they knew of what he did, which is like pretty sweet. I think that there's like that, the understanding, the reminder, the knowledge, the faith, the courage to move forward because of who God is and the testimony of God's working before in the Israelite people, to these 3 guys being able to say, we actually know that God has saved people and he will save us. And I think that was huge, to think of the even if piece, saying even if I go in there, I know God is with me. Like that's like we walk through hard things to be able to say, I know of the stories of ancestors. I can read stories of, I can think about what God has done to know that even if this isn't exactly the way I imagined it was going to be, God is with me. I think is pretty sweet.
Do we have any, I can't remember in the passage, does it say anything
good, Mark.
about about them knowing that, like, do they see a fourth person with them? No, right? We don't
I
hear
don't
anything
think
about
so.
that.
We don't
So
hear
really
anything about that.
Nebuchadnezzar is the one who sees like the fourth person with them.
Right. I think
But I
that's
just
right.
love that. And I remember reading this quote a long time ago from Beth Moore. I actually dug it up because when I was thinking about this morning. And it says, God always abides with us. His ultimate goal is for us to abide with him. And I was like, yes, like this idea of being in the fire, that they weren't really saved from the fire, but God was present for them. So he always abides with us. Now his question is, will we abide with him?
Just going to talk about the boldness piece there. Because sometimes I think we could shy away with the even if. So we don't ask God in boldness with bold prayers. We go like, well, you're in control, your will be done. And no, these guys were bold. They said, he will deliver us out of your hand, O King.
Yeah.
But even if he doesn't, and I just, that challenges me. That I know that even if, whatever, right? But I still need to come to God with boldness and ask him with boldness and with belief. I believe he can heal you, you know? So I think we could shy away with that even if sometimes a little bit.
That's a good, and even that trust, like really, there's three choices. You're going to be delivered from the fire, which is going to build your faith, right? Or you
Right.
can be delivered through the fire, like you're going to have to go through it, and which is a refining, or you're going to be delivered into his arms. That's perfecting of your faith. So I think that's right. There is boldness.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's good.
Good thought, Luke.
Yeah, thanks. That's good.
So Jeff had us asking God, what might be taking first place in our lives. What do you give subconscious allegiance to? So that's my question for you guys. What do you give subconscious allegiance to in your lives?
Oh man, Levi, the one thing that I'm realizing is just this like a vacation almost, like where it's like one day you're going to be able to rest and find contentment and stuff. And like that's what you're working for. And it's like, no, that as a Christ follower, that's available to us today. It's not something that you have to work towards or wait for in the future. I think sometimes I often find myself making that the be all and end all, that one day there's just going to be like this time of rest. Where you
So
can put your feet up.
what is your allegiance to in that then?
I don't know, laziness? No. Right, Glenda? I don't know. What is it? It's the American dream, maybe? I don't know. I don't know how to qualify that. How would you qualify that?
I don't know. Yeah, I would say it. Maybe this is put negatively, but that you really it's pride. I think because you're stepping in those places and not resting because of pride. Maybe I don't know, or I do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thing is we're always building our own little kingdom, forgetting about building God. So ultimately, for me, I mean, I give allegiance to myself. That's horrifying to say, but like we try to seek position in some ways. Like, so am I seeking position or am I seeking God? So I think you don't want people to have this negative image of you, so you're crafting this image as Nebuchadnezzar did. That's this massive golden, and really we kind of do that, or I kind of do that. You guys might be holier than me.
No, that's probably good. I looked at the list. I have a list of things.
You got a list? Wow.
Yeah, I got a list. But probably some of them end up in that sort of, I think there would be like this approval or this relationship health in all of the aspects of this. So for me, maybe what you just said comes out in like the image of like how how I'm perceived, and that kind of, that's probably one of the things. So I think, and maybe that you sort of the pride piece or whatever, I didn't quite have that written down, but that would make sense to me. I probably put that before finding my rest or my identity piece in who God created me to be, which I'm learning, and I think I'm better than I was, but those are probably, I can resort back to that. That would be my thing.
I feel you with that, definitely. I remember my first year of Bible college with YWAM, there was 1 week on pride, and how the root of all sin is pride,
Yeah.
and how sneaky it is. And I remember coming out of that week going, oh man, I'm done for in my whole life. Like this is so gonna be me. This is gonna be the battle that I'm gonna face my whole life. Subconsciously having this allegiance to my pride and thinking that I'm better than
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
God.
Like we want to be so significant, right? Like we want to be so significant in so many ways. We just place ourselves in the center.
I feel like pride, all of us could say pride. And if you're listening and you're like, nah, pride's not my thing, it is.
You just don't have a good enough friend to tell you. It is.
That's right, Glenda.
So pride obviously is thinking that you can do it better. And so this story actually is a complete reliance on God.
Absolutely.
For their very lives. Like they actually are thrown into the fire and they're relying on God to bring them out, or that God will still be with them even as they die. And so what areas do we need to learn to trust God? How do we learn from this story?
I think, what did you say earlier, Glenda? Something about the 3 in the fire, through the fire. What did you say? Say that again. I thought that
I think if we're delivered like from the fire, like we won't be in the fire, we'll delivered from that. And that really builds our faith, right? That's like, oh, God rescued me in the situation when I asked him those big, bold prayers. But sometimes it's through the fire that we have to experience this delivery, right? That refines our faith, makes it go down deep. And then I think sometimes we're really delivered into, at some point we're all going to be delivered into his arms. And that's really the perfection. That is the fulfillment of our faith.
We're all going to die. Is that what you're saying, Glenda?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep, there it is.
But I think sometimes, like, first of all, I think God does give us room to ask him, like, can I trust you? And this past week I've been, I did this study on the wisdom books, and really that's what's happening in those books. That's where wisdom is born is. But there is an understanding in that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So I think we have to know who God is. So for me, in order to trust God, like I actually have to know who he is. So I just try to find ways to, like, how can I know who you are? So where do I see your hand? Where can I hear your voice? Where can I see you in action? Where can I learn about who you are? So I think those are the things that I try to build, and that just builds my trust in God. Experience helps, people's testimony and them telling me about their experience with God helps too. I think those are ways that I would find that.
I love that verse you quoted, Glenda, because I think that, and just in how it says it, it destroys pride. So the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, right? You recognize who you are and who God is. That's the fear of the Lord. You recognize that you're not worthy, that it's a humbling thing, right? And if you're not there, then wisdom won't come.
I remember this story. I can't remember if I told this story before, but this story about people going in and slapping the butts of goats and thinking that's so funny as they fainted and fall down. And that this is so funny, these goats, what can they do? And they faint when you scare them, these fainting goats. But then they were saying the image of the fear of the Lord is, what if that was a lion? You would not walk up to it and slap it and say boo to make it fall down. So it's just the understanding of who God is, this lion who is good. So, but there is a certain amount of like respect and awe that's in that, I think. But I wonder if that leads to trust. I don't know.
In what ways does courage matter in this situation?
I think that those are when you know who God is, when we have know our maker, when we know the lion. I don't know, does that make, going back to then I think there's the courage. The beauty of the Bible is that we know the end. We know how this story ends. We know that when we walk into the fire, whether we are, joined, we know what we're joined by, whether we survive the fire, whether we're going to in the end spend eternity with God. I think that there's like that piece, but I think the courage to know that God is with us, like again, I think it's back to like the what we know, who we know God to be, the who we know his great love for us that worked itself out in the sacrifice of his son for us. That I don't know, there's like courage that comes in being able to know that this is the God we serve, this is the God we follow, this is the God that we believe leads us, leads me. I don't know, I think that there's courage in that, or I can take courage in that when I don't let my own pride get in the way.
Yeah, amen, Mark. The presence of God. I think the awareness of being dependent on God and actually weak is a very courageous thing to do.
That's
And I
really
don't
good,
think,
yeah.
I think that today especially we have this weird idea of strength and courage. We don't want to show our scars. We don't want to show our weakness. We don't want to be vulnerable. It takes a heck of a lot of courage to be vulnerable, to show weakness, but that's where God shows up and starts making you into a strong, courageous person. So,
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you think that like one of the things that he talked about in the sermons was I think he said the largest problem that we have right now is the courageousness of Christians. I've been thinking about that this over the last days.
that point stuck out to me. Eh? But, yeah.
Right.
What did you think about that, Luke?
Because he referred,
For me, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I think he was specific in, like, he used the example of speaking about his faith with his neighbor. I think he felt God was leading him to do that and he didn't. Is that, I think, is the example he used. I think there's probably some of that we don't want to, there's like a piece of standing out because of what that we're a bit nervous to do.
Yeah, I feel like, hey, Mark, I've been challenged in my life many times with that, and sometimes I've failed. I've wimped out. There's other times where it did take some courage, and you know, I shared with my neighbor or whatever the Lord put in front of me there. But yeah, again, I think it comes to that dependency thing where courage is not something that I naturally have, and I think most of us need to recognize that most of us aren't courageous people. We need a courageous God. And so, yeah, I wrestle with that because I've failed, but I've also been challenged to push out and step out too.
So you think these guys were like courageous because
God was courageous for them? Man. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it goes back to that knowing. I think they knew God, right?
They had the consistency, they had the confidence, and through that, they're able to have courage.
Right.
And I think chapters 1 and 2, right? I don't think you have chapter 3 without 1 and 2.
Yeah,
so like those small stands that they took, God was building them to a bigger stand, right? So for you, if in your own life, you're not going to be faced with a fiery furnace right away. Maybe your first thing is to tell your neighbor you're praying for them, right? And that's a big courageous step. But God's working that for your next stand, you know?
Yeah, I like that how you just put that, how it goes with the whole narrative of the story. Like there's actually a building on it, and not that I'm saying that you have to have an experience to prove that you can have confidence in God, but there's these other stands that they have taken which has shown them that they can have confidence in who God is, that God clearly spoke to Daniel already to prove that he is the true God, and now he is going to stand with them again and show Nebuchadnezzar again that he is the true God.
Right. Yeah. Amen.
So take courage. Do it. Like, yeah. All right, friends. It's so great. I love this part of the podcast because I feel like I get to, I don't know, understand the message in different ways. And I just get to process it a little bit differently than I usually get to. And so thank you guys for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you if this took extra amount of courage just to speak what's been going on with you guys.
On the lighter side.
So today's on the lighter side. This one's gonna be kind of a funny one, I think. What is your most used app? Your most used app
Ooh, gotta get out your phone.
on your phone, especially like in today's world, we've been on our phones probably a little bit more than regular, which is a lot because before regular was a lot. But anyways, what is your most used app? Maybe you have to take your phone out and see what it actually is.
Does a text message count, Levi, or no? Is that not an app?
It is an app if you use like messages, but like you should actually see. You should see on your phone what your most used app is.
How do you see? I don't know how you see that, but
Settings?
Yeah, settings. I think settings and usage.
Usage?
Things that a couple apps that I love. I love the Blue Letter Bible app. I don't know if you guys use that, but if I ever have questions about like what does this word mean, where other ways, I love the Blue Letter Bible. It will look at Greek words for you. So helpful. I just love it. I also love Hoopla because you can get free things from the library, and I listen and read them all the time. I love Hoopla. It is so brilliant.
Free audiobooks, and there's like some good ones on there. So.
And then do you know how you have that those apps that you just really are going to think you're going to love, but you haven't hardly used yet? I downloaded an app. It's called Pause. It's actually put out by John Eldridge, and it's like daily pause and reflection. Yeah. So I'm really excited about it. I just got it and signed up, but those are 3 of my favorites.
Wow.
I'm trying to get the usage, Levi. I can't find it.
I'm very certain that mine would say that Instagram is the number one.
Really? Hey?
Mine would say, I would say mine are like Messenger, Facebook Messenger, because it just seems like a communication tool that I use, and Instagram. Those would be the 2 biggest ones. After that, I'm playing Scrabble online a bit.
Oh, see, that's
Ruthie's
fun to
is Sudoku. Sudoku for sure.
Sudoku's good.
Yeah.
I'm really into Marco Polo right now. Do you guys Marco Polo?
Oh.
Anyway, it's just like a video chat. So you just like hold it, record yourself talking to your friends. But I'm in a group with my if table. So my if table is always Marco Poloing. It's so fun with great conversations on there. So good.
That's good.
I think like my phone would say Instagram and CBC News. Like I just am a news person. So I love checking the news. Maybe Netflix because my son watches Paw Patrol on my phone, so it takes up time. I know these are all not like great learning things. Hopefully, like if this was a regular situation, like I was driving back and forth to work, it would probably say Spotify or podcasts, like the great podcast app, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, or Hoopla because I listen to audiobooks. So I'd say those are my most productive ones.
Yeah, I love how Glenn is the only one that said Blue Letter, a Bible app.
Yeah.
I also have a prayer app I love. I really I really love like spiritual apps, like weird obsession. Another thing I want to talk about that nobody else wants to ever talk about.
The interested thing.
I love
Levi loves Levi gives me lots of good app ideas. So I use a thing called Pray As You Go.
Yeah, I've got one called Church Home, which is actually a church in the States. They've moved everything online before COVID, but they have daily guided prayers.
Interesting.
It's like really cool. Like each day they'll like walk you through praying with God, and yeah, it's a whole thing. So, yes, you can hear that. That's my son.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, COVID life, parenting, COVID life.
Hashtag.
Luke, you don't have any interesting apps on your phone? You don't have anything you use for...
No, it's kind of boring. I have the Ladybug app for Paisley when she wants to follow Ladybug. I don't, Glenda. I got bored.
Canva.
Trivia Crack was one of them.
Oh, Trivia Crack. Love that one. House Party?
I had to delete Trivia Crack because it was just too addicting.
I was so addicted on that, but not as much anymore, but I still can get suckered in. It's the ads, though, that bother me.
Okay.
Just pay for the app.
But the text messaging would probably be the highest used on my phone.
Oh yeah, for sure, mine too. Like,
for sure.
Get an app. Messenger.
Wow, you guys are popular.
Where's the lots of texting people?
For sure,
probably.
Messenger and WhatsApp and Marco Polo would be my highest that I use. But I love all the other ones too.
I love all the apps. in the
Kindle.
world.
Kindle on your phone.
And my Echo will read me my Kindle books.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
We're very
You know what,
high-tech
you have-
around here.
Yeah, you know what? Your husband is like a techie. He's
I
hooked
know.
up.
That's so cool.
How great is Keenan?
Keenan is so
going on
great.
her husband again. Yeah.
I know. Let's get going on Keenan again. Is he there? Can we see him again?
He's not.
Is he mowing the lawn this
No.
week? Just
No,
give us
he's
the
not.
time. We'll come and
Yeah,
watch.
we're coming to
Watch
watch.
with you.
I did take a
Brenda.
picture of him the other day mopping the floor. 'cause
I
that
know,
was
we've
very
seen it.
nice.
Yes, we saw
Yeah.
that last week.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
But I think you should start selling tickets for a drive-in watching
You
Keenan mow
guys
the
are
lawn
so
event.
weird. You make nice things weird.
This is the
Okay,
first
that's
time I've
enough.
made anything weird.
Okay.
Yeah.
True.
Like that.
All right, friends, it's been so great hanging out with you guys, talking about Daniel 3 and some other fun stuff. Until next week, saying goodbye. See you later.
See you,
See you,
everybody.
friends.
Have a good one.